You Booked It, episode 172. What's going on, everyone? Thank you for joining me today on You Booked It, the #1 podcast where you learn how to create a successful entertainment career. Every episode is a masterclass on how to move your career forward. Do you want to take your career to the next level? As a listener of this podcast, I am offering you the opportunity to work one-on-one with me to build the foundation of what you need to create a successful career in today's world. Regardless if you're starting out or you've been doing this a while, I've got you covered. Look, when I entered this industry, I went to the #1 school in the USA for musical theater, graduated with an insane skill set, and zero clue about how to actually make my skills a career. I lost years of momentum because of it. Do not let this happen to you. That's why I created this podcast. That's why I'm making you this offer to coach with me. If you're interested, simply tap the link in the description of this episode and let's chat. Okay, let's get started. I am excited to introduce my guest today, Katherine Winter. Are you ready for this, Katherine?
I'm so ready.
Brilliant. Hailing from Toronto, Canada, Katherine is a graduate of NYU's Tisch School of the Arts' new studio on Broadway for musical theater and is currently appearing in the only live theater show in New York City, Voyeur, The Windows of Toulouse-Lautrec. Katherine won the BroadwayWorld for Best Actress in a Musical as her portrayal as Lola in Damn Yankees and has performed off-Broadway across New York City, Toronto, and the United States at such venues as Radio City Music Hall, Berkshire Theatre Group, Woodstock Playhouse, Feinstein's 54 Below, Birdland, Berkeley Street Theatre, and the Toronto Fringe Festival. Katherine, that is a quick intro of who you are and what you've done, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself, fill in the gaps, and a little bit more about what you do as a professional in the entertainment industry?
Yes, thank you so much for that. I'm so excited to be here today. So, as you mentioned, I'm originally from Toronto, Canada. I've always wanted to be in the performing arts. I grew up on old Hollywood movie musicals and Barbra Streisand. My third word was even Barbara. Feel like it's almost in my blood to keep going down this path.
Yes.
But I grew up loving the theater, loving the movies. I went to performing arts high school as an acting major and did a lot of improv there, and then accidentally fell into dance. My mom said, "You're a spaz, I'm putting you in dance classes if you really want to do this." And I was like, fine, only if I can take tap dance classes. So I started doing just ballet and tap when I was about 13. And then my studio had a discount where you could take as many classes as you want for the cost of 3. So the next year I'm like, great, I'm going to dive into dance. And then my studio grew and I grew with it. And suddenly I was dancing 20 hours a week outside of being at a performing arts school, and musical theater became the thing. I was a bit of a crazy person and applied to 30 musical theater and acting programs around the world. To go to school for musical theater and acting. I knew it's what I wanted to do. And I got into NYU Tisch. I ended up going there because they saw me as an actor first, because I was in an acting program and I came to dance late. That was very much how I saw myself. I also knew I wanted to be in New York City. I wanted to be networking and have one foot in the door, one foot out the door sort of situation while I was in school. So I was lucky enough to be able to do that. Because of my performing arts high school, I was super lucky because they really pushed us towards being a multidisciplinary artist. So I would oftentimes costume design the show, assistant direct the show, co-direct the show while also being in it, while also doing a musical, while also being part of a competitive improv troupe and a lot of crazy things. And then NYU is very much the same story of, yes, please hair design the show. Oh, you have these other passions, you can go do that. NYU itself is such a big school that you can take all your electives and your general education classes in very specific, weird things. I took one class that was musical theater history in the 1970s in New York City. Or another class that was like, yes, like 3 hours a week talking about the 1970s in New York City and watching videos of Pippin. So I've always been wearing many hats. And the good thing is I have a hat head. I look good in many hats. So I've always had this draw to so many different types of theater. Biggest musical theater nerd you will ever meet, and definitely want to do that for the rest of my life. But my high school is very involved in experimental theater and devised work and physical comedy and improv. And I have this huge love for dance and Fosse's work. I've gotten to bounce between many of those forms. So I went to school at NYU. I graduated just over a year ago. And I've been working in the city as well as regionally. While I was in school, the whole time I wanted to be actively working. So over my summers, I worked at Berkshire Theatre Group and Woodstock Playhouse and really got to figure out what this regional theater scene is. It's very different than the way it's run in Canada. And I've been always very fascinated as to the business side of Broadway, the business side of theater, the business side of film and television. I was told at a very early age that the business is 90% of your success and only 10% is your talent. So I was like given all these books as a kid, like you have to read these things. So I thought everyone was going to know what I knew. And then I got here, I was like, oh, got it. Okay, so this is what I love. So I've ended up producing and choreographing and directing. And now I'm in the only live theater show in New York City.
Yeah, that's amazing. What a journey. And it's so cool that you've been able to experience so many different parts of the industry. And like you said, the business side of this industry, it is so important. And I think whoever said that quote that told you 90% of it is about the business side, 10% is the talent. And I think that's probably pretty true. If having a long career that supports you is something that you want. If you want to just book one contract, then maybe not so much. But if you want a career in this industry, yeah, you have to have your head around the business side.
Absolutely. Especially when you're starting out, I'm still unrepresented at the moment. And being a non-equity, unrepresented person, especially a female in New York City, it's all about the hustle and you have to know how things work. Also, once you're then in a show, knowing how the show gets put on is only going to help your understanding of things, help you have also more sympathy and just be a better human being to be around in the whole process of creating a show.
For sure, which leads to developing great relationships, which then leads to just more work and more momentum in your career.
Absolutely.
Yes. Let's dig into this first section here. And Katherine, look, I am a sucker for a good quote. What is your favorite quote you'd like to share with everyone?
One of my favorite quotes is from Mary Oliver. It's a very short one. It's the end of her poem, The Summer Day. But it is, tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?
That's really great. And do you have an answer?
No, not necessarily. But I think it's that when I hear that, it brings me back to I say I do everything for my 12-year-old self. Like my 12-year-old self would
Yeah.
be crying over the fact that I live in New York City and I walk down the street and I can look up and see the Empire State Building. And whenever I'm tired, I say, you get to be tired in New York City. How lucky are you? So this idea that anything's possible, that whenever you feel down, how do you ignite that fire within yourself? You have this wild and precious life and the world is your oyster.
Yes, love that quote. Love your perspective on it. So good. And let's get into this section here. And Katherine, of course, you are an entertainer. I'm an entertainer. And I think that you'd agree that this industry can be one of the most subjective, brutally honest, personally emotional industries in existence. And you know as well as I that in order to create and have a successful career in this industry like you're having now takes a lot of dedication and hard work. And while, yes, there is an outrageous amount of fun and excitement being an entertainer, doing what we do, there are also our fair share of obstacles, challenges, and failures we are going to experience and we're going to have to move forward through. So tell us, what is one key challenge, obstacle, or failure you've experienced in your career, and how did you come out the other side better because of it?
Oh my goodness. Living in New York for the past 5 years and really hustling to try to get a job and going into audition rooms and going to so many open calls, I have my fair share of crazy stories. But one of the things I think I learned early on, this is going to sound silly, was auditioning for high schools. I was lucky enough that Toronto has about 6 performing arts high schools you can audition for. And previously, some of them were middle schools. And I remember auditioning in grade 7 and not getting in. And then auditioning in grade 8 and being waitlisted again. And then auditioning for grade 9 and being waitlisted again. And auditioning for these 6 different schools. And I didn't understand like why I kept going back to the same audition. And I tried to learn and be better and take the feedback and grow every single year. And you have to realize that it's all within yourself. The school I ended up going to for high school, I auditioned for it in grade 7, in grade 8, and grade 9. It was waitlisted every single time. I ended up getting in off of the wait list. And I went into the school with so much more gratitude and so much, everything was so precious. I was so excited to be there, so excited to soak up all the knowledge, and it made me a better student than if I would have just gotten in the first round, I think. And that brought it back around to then the year after I'd graduated school, on one of my breaks from NYU, I went back to my high school and helped adjudicate auditions for the next round of kids to get in. And you can see the hope in their eyes and you can see what they're bringing to it. And I think that initial lesson and that initial thing of auditioning for high schools and middle schools and not getting in and keep trying taught me this invaluable lesson that you can just keep working on it and keep growing, and what you want can still come to you. It's this idea of a lot of Broadway shows that are long running. People dream of being in Wicked. My dream's to be in Chicago. And I know I'm going to audition for it 10 or 20 times before I get in it. But I have this dream and this goal of being in that show. And every time, okay, it's a no, let's keep working on it. Okay, this time I got a call back. Okay, let's keep working on it. And it's like that with many shows, or shows go through so many different rounds of development and auditions and creative teams, that if you have this goal in life, whether it's the goal ultimately of having a whole career or a specific show or a specific role, the good thing is it's not going anywhere. Right now, theater, we are on pause, but those shows, Chicago is a show, or if your dream's West Side Story, Les Miserables, whatever it might be, that show is still going to be in existence. You still can have the chance to do it. You can even have the chance to do another film version of it. Who knows? You don't know. But if you keep working on yourself and taking that no as a not right now, it gives you that opportunity to keep growing.
Yeah, take that no as a not right now. That sums it up so well. And you're so right. I love how you have had that experience. And you're right. We get told no all the time. And we have to keep moving forward. It's the persistence and the perseverance in this career that you have to build within yourself, because that's where all the growth happens. Sometimes you get lucky and you book it the first time round, but that is really the exception and not the rule. And you have to be willing to put in the work so you can see yourself grow over time, and love that perspective. I think everyone should rewind that and have a quick listen, because that was so good. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
And let's move on to a time that I like to call your spotlight moment. That one moment in time you realized, yes, I am going to be an entertainer for a living. Or maybe it was, yes, this is what I need to be doing as an entertainer. Tell us about that.
Yes. So I've always said I was going to be an actor, even when I was a kid, even before I really understood what that was going to mean. But I realized I wanted to pursue musical theater and the idea of singing, acting, and dancing at the same time when I was in grade 6. So at this time, I've gone through many obsessions over my life. And at the time in grade 6, I was obsessed with the movie Grease. I wanted to be Riz so badly. She's like who I wanted to be when I grew up, like not the character. Like I didn't want to play her in the show. Like I wanted to be her. I don't know if that's the best role model, but that's beside the point. And I was currently auditioned for a theater company and they were doing Grease, and I got in it. And it was the most exciting thing. Like in the 20th person in the ensemble that had a made up character name as like one of Marty's friend named Margie. But I was there, like we were doing Grease, and I was so obsessed with it. I used to dress up in my 50s clothes every day for school. Such a big fan. And I decided to stay in some of the rehearsals I wasn't called for, just watch them, because I loved the show and I loved the music. And I remember watching the girl playing Rizzo, and she sang There Are Worse Things I Could Do, and it brought me to tears. And I was like, that's what I want to learn how to do. That's what I want to do for the rest of my life. And since then, it's been musical theater all the way.
So good. I love that story. And I love that show. It's one of my favorite shows. I got to play it ages and ages ago, but so much fun. I just love the music, love the choreography. Everything about that era is fantastic and fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And let's piggyback on that real quick and talk about your number one booked it moment. Walk us through that day, the auditions and callbacks, if they happen to be a part of it. What was going on in your life, and what about that moment makes it your favorite booked it moment?
Oh my goodness. I would say booking Lola and Damn Yankees was that moment for me. I'd been taking a lot of classes with the Verdon Fosse Legacy, and I'm fortunate enough to know a lot of that team at the moment, and I work as an assistant with them sometimes, which is phenomenal. But throughout school, I've always been fixated on Damn Yankees and on the show. I actually got into college with a little brains, a little talent from Damn Yankees.
Oh, great.
Yeah. But it was funny that year when I was auditioning for the show. I was like, I remember seeing they were doing Damn Yankees, and I was like, I'm more of a Gloria. And I just didn't see myself in that way. I was like, oh, I guess I'm like the funny, weird one. I don't know. And I was going through some other mental health issues at the time and just really feeling really down and out. And then out of nowhere, I went for my general audition for them and they said, oh, can you sing something from the show? And I'm like, oh, well, I know one of the songs. So I sang Little Brains, Little Talent. Okay, great. And then they asked me to do a tap dance for something else in their season. I did that. Great. We want you to film whatever Lola wants. And if you can do some of the dance, whatever you want to do, make up something just so we can see how you move. So I went back and I filmed it. And I think I went through 3 or 4 different days of trying to film this audition. And I just couldn't find a way that I felt good about it. Oh, and also they wanted her to have a Russian accent.
Oh, okay.
They wanted me to sing whatever Lola wants with a Russian accent. They were going to make her Russian. So it was just this crazy thing of trying to learn how to do that and then also choreograph this number, but then also feeling like this pressure of because I'm such a nerd, like feeling the pressure of the history of the show on my back. And I ended up going into a classroom and we had some weird bench and then we had a piano and then we had a ballet bar and it was just a hot mess of a room. And I was like, wait, what if I use what's here? So I used the bar like they would in Big Spender and Charity, but would start there. And then I like pretended where my imaginary Joe was and filmed and created essentially a whole number. And I was like, this might not be what I should be doing, but it's a choice. And then I sent it to them and I was like, I hope this is okay. I don't know. Like it took me days and hours of locking myself in a room. There was a snow day happening. And they're like, okay, great. Let's schedule time to call you. And I was like, okay, right away. And they called me over my lunch break at school and everyone was around me. And it was just this really exciting of, wow, I did that. It was a whole lot of hard work. And now the real work begins of, okay, how are we going to tackle this? Spoiler alert, she ended up not being Russian, but that was a fun adventure. And in a future cabaret, I'm definitely gonna do that song, Whatever Lola Wants, with like several different accents throughout and change the personality of her.
Yeah, that'd be hilarious.
But it was just one of those things of, oh my God, I did that. And to many more booked it moments.
Yes, so good. I like that you went into that room and you said, you know what? Because you're trying to do like the usual self-tape thing. And you're like, no.
Yeah.
I love that you just worked with the room. And I think that's what you got to do. You just have to go with your gut and see it and just make it happen, because that's also what makes it a bit more memorable for people watching videos. They get a lot of the same stuff, right?
Absolutely.
And if you can do something that's still relevant and still great, but a little bit of a twist on it, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
it's something I tend to make crazy choices for my self-tapes. And I'm like, you're either going to love this or think it's terrible, but it's a choice.
Yeah. For sure. And let's take a moment to talk about the present. What projects are you working on now? What are you looking forward to? And it's a weird time being amidst this global pandemic. So how do you see the entertainment industry moving forward in the next couple of years?
Yes, I'm very excited about what I'm working on right now. So I'm very lucky to be in the only live theater show in New York City called Voyeur, The Windows of Toulouse-Lautrec. And
Cool.
it has been such a joy. So I ended up booking it at the end of August and I started rehearsals in September. And we're rehearsing outside on the streets of Greenwich Village and the show moves. It's essentially almost like a walking tour through Greenwich Village. So that way everyone can be socially distant. The actors were in windows or behind an abandoned storefront or on the street or in the middle of a square or through Washington Square Park. And it's just the craziest thing to try to rehearse and try to take direction or give direction, because you're 2 stories down and you're masked, so you can't read what people are saying. And it's madcap crazy. But when you were rehearsing, there's always crazy things happening in New York City. But when we were rehearsing, having these 2 can-can dancers do a set of 8 kicks in a window had people stop in their tracks and applauding, because we were so starved for art. So starved for things happening. And in the warmer days when we go out, you have the group of 8 people have their own violinist following them around. And it's just this magical experience of seeing the city come to life. It's this love story to New York City, but also you get these beautiful vignettes of artistry, and there's puppetry and dance, as well as text-based and physical theater. And it's stunning. And I'm just so grateful to be a part of it and see people's reactions, whether they're actually taking the show or just walking by and stopping for a moment to see what's happening. And as the show has gotten extended, I've been lucky enough to become the rehearsal director for the show and help set it on new cast members and help bring new people into the show and bring them into this world. And it makes me hopeful for New York. I've stayed in New York for the whole pandemic, and it's been tricky. At first it was, okay, let's find a routine for ourselves to stay on track. I feel like I was in a really good place when the pandemic hit, and I was like, okay, how do we keep this momentum up? And then you realize it's going to last longer. And the city emptied out. All of my friends left the city. I didn't know anyone else in the borough of Manhattan. And I'd walk around the city and everything would be shut down or boarded up. And it felt a
Yeah.
little post-apocalyptic. But I tried to keep myself creatively engaged, or what are the things I've always wanted to do. There were a couple of moments where I would like create dances and choreograph them and then find a cool place on one of my runs. And I'd say, okay, I'm going to go there at the crack of dawn and film a big dance number of just myself and sweat the whole day and be really stressed out about it, then go home and edit it and put it up as a way to have my own love letter to the city and have my own way of expressing myself and keeping myself busy. Also, I don't know if you know who Jenna Van Alcindor is, but she created the Times Square Project. And essentially a group of Broadway dancers, we would meet at the Marriott Marquis in front of those big mirrors and learn a dance number. And then for one moment on a Saturday afternoon, we'd be the only show performing on Broadway, and we'd perform in Times Square this dance number we just learned, and she would film it. But to really able to create and network, quite honestly, in that way, but also see yourself in a full body mirror. Like I've been in my apartment in my like 50 square feet, moving my little Bed Bath and Beyond mirror around my apartment to like try to see my full body, to just be around and share space with other bodies. I cannot wait till we're back. But I think the city itself has persevered. I have fallen even more in love with the city, even more in love with this business and the value that art can bring. Being in a show now, even though we can only have 8 audience members on each show, seeing the joy it brings people and seeing how truly necessary live theater is, I have full faith that the industry will come back and come back with full force. I think the type of theater we're going to see is going to be very different. I think that the way in which things come back might be a different shift. Broadway will not be the first thing to come back. Hopefully the regional theaters can come up a little bit before that with following all the proper precautions and all of that. But seeing what my theater company has been doing and being a part of it has been truly the biggest gift.
That is so cool. And your show, do people buy tickets to it, or does it just happen on the street and people can just experience it as they're just amongst their daily lives? Is it both? How does that work?
Yes, so people do buy tickets. You can buy tickets at makinglatrekplay.com. And the show runs essentially every half hour, and there's about 8 shows a night. And so depending on which location certain performers are at, they either do their show 8 times a night, or there's like a tour guide MC character for the evening that'll do 2 or 3 shows a night and take the group around. It's about an hour-long show. The answer is yes, you buy tickets to be able to see the whole show and get the whole experience. Everyone gets like a tag when they check in as their special pass, so we know who's part of our tour, essentially.
Yeah.
But we definitely have people who grab onto it and who stay with us as long as they can. The last about 20 minutes of the show, which is truly phenomenal, is inside the Judson Church. We've been lucky enough to work with the historic Judson Memorial Church, and they've given us the giant space and the giant meeting room. So the only people allowed inside for the last 20 minutes of the show are the people that have bought tickets, obviously. And they've all signed COVID release forms to get their temperature checked and they get screened and all that. So people can see a whole lot of it, and they may not necessarily know what's happening if they weren't there from the very beginning. But we have a lot of people that have seen it several times, or who live on the block, or the people outside. We start the show at the duplex, and there's several bars and stone walls there. And one of the women who owns one of the bars, she knows all the lines in the dance number and like screams the lines at us every night as well. It's just become this whole uproarious, magical it's a series of happenings, and that's perfect. And it feels right for the pandemic.
Very cool. I love that concept.
Mm-hmm.
And it is time to move on to one of my favorite sections in the interview. I call it the Grease Lightning Round. Speaking of grease, I am going to ask you a handful of questions. I want you to answer them as quickly and concisely as possible, one after another. Are you ready?
So ready.
All right, first question. What was the one thing holding you back from committing to a career as an entertainer?
Nothing.
Second question. What is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
Do 3 things a day towards your career. Or in pandemic times, do 3 things a day towards your goal. That can be buying an audition dress, watching a television show to try to see what character you're right for, finding a new scene, or fully submitting a new audition or taking a class.
Love that. And the third question, what is something that is working for you right now? Or if you'd like to go pre-COVID, what was working for you before our industry went on pause?
Daily Ballet Bar. before the industry paused, I really wanted to up my classical dance training because I came to dance late and never saw myself as a dancer. So I got used to taking class 4 to 5 times a week, a ballet class on top of my other dance classes. So when the pandemic hit, I was suddenly shocked. I was, oh no, all this hard work. So I created my own ballet bar. I do my own 30 to 45-minute ballet bar when I wake up in the morning, and it's kept me on track.
So good. And that foundation, that ballet foundation is so important. You don't have to be in a ballet company to be doing ballet. And I think that's something that's happening a lot in dance studios right now is they're forgoing the ballet and going with what's more interesting to watch on Instagram, right? Or gets better.
Yes.
It's more interesting for a dance comp. And the foundation of the technique is so important to maintain throughout your whole career because it translates and moves with you through every single dance style.
Absolutely.
Yes. And the fourth question, what is your best resource, whether that is a book, a movie, a YouTube video, maybe a podcast or piece of technology you found is helping your career right now?
It's actually not immediate, but my number one recommendation, like I said, someone handed me like, oh, you must read this book. And I was like 12. And it was Bonnie Gillespie's Self-Management for Actors. It talked a lot about MySpace back then, but there are modern versions. I suggest everyone go get it. It is LA focused, but everything I know is from this like 600-page book. And it's what like ignited my knowledge of the industry and how to be a business person as an actor and how to be your own business. I feel like if you're something New York based, I would do Acting as a Business by Brian O'Neill. He then taught in my school and I was like, oh my God, you're a celebrity to me. Anyways.
Amazing. So good. And the fifth question, if you had to start your career from scratch, but you still had all the knowledge and experience you've collected from your career in this industry, what would you do or not do? Would you do anything differently or would you keep it the same?
You know what? I'm excited as to where I am right now. And I say, let's just keep going, see where this career takes me.
Beautiful. And the last question, what is the golden nugget knowledge drop you've learned from your successful career in this industry you'd like to leave with our listeners?
This goes towards that 3 things a day I was talking about earlier, but never hope for it more than you work for it. And what I mean, that can sometimes sound very anxiety inducing, but I feel like that's the kick in the butt that I've always needed is sometimes you can want something so bad or know so much about something, whether it's the history of the industry or a specific show, a specific person, whatever it might be. But it takes so much work to get there. That favorite TV star you love, they had 10 years of saying one line on a TV show. So it takes constant work, and that can be working in an actual show, on a contract, or in training. I've come to learn that work begets work, and people who are constantly working are going to keep constantly working. And that can be, like I said, on a contract. People jump from Broadway show to Broadway show, or from TV show to TV show, or from this movie to that movie. It's because of their work ethic. They're constantly trying to improve themselves. How can they find what it is, mine the depths of that character, and keep working on it? And when you're not on a contract, how do you keep your training up? How do you keep your knowledge of the industry up? So work begets work, and never hope for it more than you work for it.
So good. Absolutely worth a rewind, everyone. Do that. And to wrap up this interview, Katherine, it is time to give yourself a plug. Where can we find you? How do our listeners connect with you? Is there anything you want to promote?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at katherine.winter. Please feel free to DM me, message me, any questions you might have. I love helping people out and helping you find your way and such. Also, if you're in New York City or plan to be or know someone who is, please come see our show. You can find us at Unmaking Toulouse-Lautrec or on our website, unmakinglautrec.com. The show itself is called Voyeur, and we would love to see you there. I'd love to see you in Greenwich Village.
Beautiful. And for everyone listening out there, I have put the links to everything Katherine just said into the description of this episode so you can easily connect with her. And also be sure to share this podcast with your fellow entertainers, coaches, teachers, arts and entertainment educators, and anyone you know aspiring to create a career in the entertainment industry. You Booked It is the #1 resource of expertise on how to actually create a successful entertainment career. Case in point, everything Katherine just dropped, especially that last golden nugget in today's episode. If you enjoyed this one, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next guest. Katherine, thank you so much for being here. It's been such a pleasure to have you on. So glad we connected.
Thank you so much. It's truly my honor to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Don't miss an episode. Every guest drops more value and insight than any other resource out there, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love to hear from you. Leave us a rating and review. Also, be sure to head over to youbookeditpodcast.com and join our free email community where we dig deep into a continually growing resource of truly actionable things you can be doing right now to help you advance your entertainment career. All the best to you.